Because I've just been very observant since I've been a kid. So I always see like people around me and how miserable they are going to work. It was just a thing. Like work has become such a thing that people just go to just for money. And I've always wondered like why does it have to be depressing? The important thing is to be honest with yourself. There is no, well, as someone, even though I can say that I'm very confident, I am always ready to back that confidence in my skills. If I know that I don't know something, I will not. I cannot put myself on a pedestal. In this case, Figma is just a tool at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't define who you are as a designer. It actually was something that gave me the clarity that I don't ever want to work in an agency in my life as a designer. It just wasn't for design. I don't want to be a designer that doesn't really care about, does it work, and that's it. No. So I kept looking.
My name is Esther Adebayo, and on my tech journey with Esther, I sit down with tech folks to talk about how they've been able to handle rejections, overcome obstacles in their careers, and really cut through the hype. From coding mistakes to battling rejections, to balancing work life, and even doing phenomenal things, my guests will share everything raw and real on my tech journey with Esther. New episodes drop every week, so you don't want to miss out. Hi, Oye. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. How are you doing?
You're welcome. I'm very well, thank you. I've been looking forward to this conversation from when you said yes, you were going to come. I'm like, okay. The day is coming and approaching, so I'm very excited that we are finally doing this. How are you doing as well?
I'm fine. It's been a very busy day for me, to be fair. The day is almost over, but I feel super excited. I was very surprised to get your email, but once I accepted and I figured, okay, I could make it work, I think I've been looking forward to it as well. So yeah, thank you for having me.
That's good to hear. You're welcome. Yeah. It's good to have you, and your story is very interesting. I'm sure we'll dive deeper into the transitions and everything that happened. But first off, I would like you to formally introduce yourself. Who is Oyeyinka, Oyerinde, and like, what do you do?
Hi, my name is Oyeyinka. I prefer to go by Oye, and I'm a product designer. I mostly work in fintech. I live in the UAE, if that is something that anyone is interested in. I'm Nigerian, and yeah, that's it, I guess. I'm not that interested.
Really short, concise, and on point. Yeah, that's fine. So I don't know if you know, but before we start the conversation, I always like to play games with my guests. So yeah, this is going to be a country trivia.
Oh boy.
It's nothing too hard, don't worry.
At this point, you're just putting fire under my house, but yeah, let's do it.
No, it's really chill, don't worry. It's just a country trivia, and I'll just like you to mention the names of 5 countries that start with the letter A.
A?
Just 5 countries, yeah, A.
Argentina, Armenia. Hey, Chineke. I'm remembering cities, not countries.
Okay.
Oh no. I know Argentina. I know Armenia. Yeah, I'm only remembering cities that have here, not countries. I don't think Amsterdam is a country. I think it's in. No, that's not it. I don't know. Africa and I mean, like countries in Africa. I didn't mean Africa is
there are 2 countries. No, I understand you. Like, which countries in Africa? Yeah, there are 2 countries in Africa that I know that start with the letter A.
Really? Let me think about it. No, I don't think I know any that starts with letter A right now. Wait, Africa, West Africa. No,
I
don't know.
I know of North Africa, Algeria,
Angola.
Oh, yeah, Angola, exactly. Angola and Algeria, yeah.
So that's 4. There's one left.
Yeah, that's 4.
Asia.
I know of Europe.
Europe, A. Australia.
Is it Europe?
Have I mentioned Australia? Have I mentioned Australia?
You've not mentioned Australia, but that was what I was thinking. But Australia is not in Europe. Australia is in Australia.
Wait, Australia is not. Oh, Australia. Yeah, that's a yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Australia is in Australia. Yeah, so you see, you got it. 5.
Australia is, it's a continent. Oh, yeah. See? I thought you were smart.
Yeah, you're smart. You're smart. Okay. So, now I want us to go into what sparked your interest in design. Yeah, so I know that you started your design journey, I think sometime 2021,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what sparked your interest in design?
So I when I was in uni, I graduated uni in 2019. Oh well, let me start from before uni. Let's go far back. So I I come from a pretty, we are not rich, we are comfortable, but we had like really hard days, I would say. However, I've just been very observant since I've been a kid. So always see like people around me and how miserable they are going to work. It was just a thing, like work has become such a thing that people just go to just for money. And I've always wondered, like, why does it have to be depressing? I mean, you're making money, granted, but there should be more to life, especially if you're going to be working till your old. Retirement age is not like tomorrow. So I've always wanted, yeah, I've always wanted something that I'll be able to do and at least be happy while at it or feel fulfilled, in a way. So I studied economics in uni, and trust me, it wasn't because I loved economics. I mean, when you go to uni, I feel like in our side of the world, it's not because everybody wants to be a medical doctor at some point, but you just take what life dishes you. So I did economics, and when I got like year 3 or year 2, I can't quite remember, I was worrying a lot about life after graduation. So I wanted to ensure that I could easily start to support my family, all of that, considering how hard it was being able to like pay for things when I was in school. So I didn't want to be unemployed. So I did a bunch of things in school, radio presenting, joined communities, did just a bunch of things, editing, blah blah blah. So it was one of those actions that led me to getting like an internship before I graduated. So I had a friend who was a year ahead of me, that every time there was time for holiday from uni, we would go to the faculty together and get like this form from like our school that you could take to places for them to give you a job, like holiday. I can't remember what it's called.
Job,
something like that. So your faculty could give you like a note, kind of like high tea, and then you take it to places. It never worked out for both of us, to be fair, because I'll go to Ibadan and he'll go to Lagos, but they also must continue. So I always wanted to build that experience before I graduated, so that at least I have something on my resume and can find a job. So it was one of those things, like he knew how much we always do this together. So I remember that day he sent me like a link to like an ambassador program, and like, I think you should apply for this. And I did apply, and then we found out that I'm the only person so far in my school. So I kind of had to take up the responsibility of establishing a team in my school with the company. Is it okay for me to name companies?
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay. So at the time it was Currywise. So
Nice.
I became their first ambassador in my school, and then we had to work together to create a team, and then I was the team lead. So every time we had something to do, we kind of delivered very fast as a new team, in fact. So I guess that got me noticed in the HQ. And when I was nearing graduation, they made me like the deputy national lead based on how efficient my team is. So when I remember being in my hostel at those times, thinking of reaching out and being like, can I work with you guys after I graduate? And I was stressing so much about it because I wanted to like have to write like an email. Who should I pitch to? Because there was one time I got a call from Razak, and it blew my mind. The CEO talking about how you're doing amazing in your school, blah 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 blah. So and funnily, I think days later or so, when I got the deputy offer stuff, they reached out to me and asked me to send my email address, and they gave me an internship offer. So it was supposed to be virtual internship, but considering I was like 4 months away from graduation, or maybe 3 months, I was writing my project, I think. So I reached out to them and told them I would prefer that my internship be deferred, so that I could come to Lagos and have like a physical internship instead. And they agreed. So the minute I finished my final exam, I packed my bag and went to Lagos. so I showed up every day, and I started working with the customer experience team at the time. And towards then, I did my graduation in school, and then I went for NYSC, and then I approached Razak again and said, can I come and do my NYSC here? And he was like, cool, yeah, sure, as long as you're able to make it work here. And then I paid someone to process my NYSC to Lagos, and they posted me to Katsina.
Oh my God, are you serious? Do you mean after paying the person, they still sent you to Katsina? Wow.
They did, and she took me some story. I was miserable, oh Lord. And after my camp, they posted me to some school in Katsina. I collected the letter. Thank you very much. And I went back. I crossed the road. I went to take bus back to, I'm not staying here. So I'm like, it's not me and you. So I went back to Lagos, still expecting to work in Katsina, and I went back to work. And I was trying to like find another way to process it back. Like, I don't care how much it's going to cost me. I can't do that to myself. So yeah, I did my NYC there. And because I was the national lead of the ambassadors, it kind of I became the go-to person now at Carrywise for the ambassadors. So I was like, I became the person that used to manage it at Carrywise at the time. So because of my experience working as an ambassador, I was able to understand pain points that I experienced when I was an ambassador, and I knew like the problems that the ambassador program had and how to make it like a better thing. So at the end of my NYSC, I think I had another interview where they asked if I wanted to continue working in customer experience, and I would rather continue working in community management, acting as someone in growth that handles ambassador program. So that became my job officially, and now I was tasked with the success of it. So I would say at this point, it was still a little bit of like trial and error for me. I was following the flow. I had a good paying job, but I was still on the quest of, do I enjoy it? Is it something I want to do long term? You know, like conditions, life served you something, you have to make it work. But it was very enjoyable for me because I became good at it at some point where I asked for the autonomy to rebuild everything from scratch, and it's success. I mean, it's still standing. So I laid like the framework. Yeah, it was very successful. Even after I left Carrywise, I had like people eating me up, like, oh yeah, how did you? So, but yeah, but my epiphany for design started. There was an event we did for the ambassadors, and we had to like design carousels to post on social media about that event, kind of like a summary of the event. So I sat with my friend at the time, who was the creative designer at Carrywise. So I sat with him as frankly, it wasn't very funny because we work remotely most of the time, but you could go to the office if you want. So I literally came to the office because I needed him to design that thing, because I'd been chasing him on Slack and it wasn't working out. So I had to sit with him like, oh yeah, do this thing now.
Let's do it.
So I was also fascinated seeing like work on Figma. So I asked if he could teach me, and he said, yeah, I think I've always had like a creative part to me that was waiting to be explored. So he taught me how to like, this is how you draw a frame, blah blah blah. I think I would go to office very early. He would come early to show me, like, we had like this big board that I would share. We made sense of Figma, and then I started to take things on Instagram and then redesign it, and it would score it in a way. We had like our own private Figma file. But yeah, that's how I started designing, I guess. So I had a day job where I did the normal ambassador stuff, but that was kind of like my first introduction to design. But I knew that I wasn't sure then if I even wanted to pursue it long term, until one day that I designed something that went live. So there was like a social media design. I think it was International Women's Day or something.
Oh, okay.
So he delegated it to me. He was supposed to design it. So he's like, oh, he's going to do it. And he went home.
He trusted left. You enough because he had taught you everything. And
yeah.
Like,
and it was like,
just
yeah,
do it.
like it's going to be like a phone call or Slack away. And he left. I was sweating buckets because Fermi was standing on my head like, we need this to go live, blah blah blah. So I remember exactly, like, this is kind of design lingo, but I remember like making like circles to represent, like, it's like an infograph. So like I just knew that I copied and pasted so much things that I didn't even know where they landed. I just made it work because when I exported and then it went live, I think that was the first time I felt like, this is very interesting, this is fascinating, I want to do this. So that became like the beginning of my journey to working on social media design somehow at Carrywise, even though it wasn't my job. And I was blessed to have the mentorship of amazing designers at Carrywise, who, especially Faye, we say something that the fear of Faye is the beginning of wisdom, because Faye would not accept anything less than from you. if you design
Quality,
anything.
yeah.
Like the integrity of career-wise design is so strong. So there were times that you design something and you kind of like send it for review and they'll tell you, oh, this alignment is off or something. So like that kind of helped me with UI design in terms of practicing and knowing that this has to be perfect, otherwise you're screwed. So like there are times where you would actually come and tell you, this should be a component. But it's very funny, like after I became a designer professionally, he told me, I didn't know you were serious about it back then. So and the funny thing is, one of those days after I became a thing where I designed, he complimented me one time, and I think I made a screenshot. I almost framed it. Like, Faye told me good job. So like I had that strong UI knowledge, but I knew that I don't think I want to do creative because I've worked with people. I've been a customer experience specialist. I handle like a community of thousands of students. I think I want to delve into UX, building things from scratch and all of that, like products, the sociology of, a bit like psychology of users and all those things.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I took a course to understand like the UX part of it. So when I left Nigeria, I knew that I think I'm ready to make a fresh start and pursue design like officially. So I never really did like design professionally in Nigeria. So yeah. Oh wow, that's a long journey. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
That's an interesting and no, it's fine. That's an interesting and long journey. Like there's a lot to unpack from everything you've said. I think the first thing I picked up was the fact that you and your friend, you were very proactive. Like even while at school, you were like, man, we cannot just sit with what school is giving us. We need to go out
Yes.
there and find our own path. And that was what then led you to career wise and became the ambassador. So just knowing that those little decisions that you take go a long way in determining
Yeah.
your future. Like at that point you don't know the future, but you're just like, okay, I can't just sit here, let me make this decision, and stepwise you just start making decision, and you just realize that after 2 years, 3 years, you've made so much progress. You're not where you were like
Used to be.
the last 3 years, where you used
Yeah.
to be. So that's one of the things I really got from your journey, and that's how you delved into, I would say you started with graphic design, right? And then
Yeah.
you moved on to UI design, and now you're a product designer. So are there really any major differences? I think you started talking about product design, UI design, but what would you say are the major differences between UI design and product design? How many resumes have you sent out with a zero response? Or maybe you're getting interviews but you just can't seem to land a job. I've been there and I know it's so frustrating, right? But the good news, I've created a toolkit to change all of that for you. Introducing the Get a Job Toolkit, your step-by-step guide to finally land your dream tech job. Inside, you get 3 resume and cover letter templates, a job tracking sheet, 100 plus interview power phrases, reach out messages to recruiters, and a LinkedIn optimization checklist. I created this toolkit because I know how hard applying to jobs can be. So whether you're just starting out your career or making a career switch to tech, this will save you so much time and stress. Click the link below to grab your toolkit and let's get you hired.
So I wouldn't say I ever was a UI designer, because I think from societal definition of UI design is people that design like user interfaces but not really involved in the UX part of designing. So let me break this down. So for a product designer, I can speak from product design perspective. A product designer kind of has to you have to think of, is it beautiful, is it delightful, like visually the aesthetics of it, and then you also have to think of how would it function, how would it work. So and then apart from that, you also have to think of like the business goals. How would this make money for the business? So you have to think of like metrics, like why are we doing this, what would this do. So like a product designer in a company kind of have to work with in tandem with like the goals of the company. So like, oh, we want to be able to attract more users, how do we optimize? Or like people are dropping off at this point of the product, how do we fix it? So like there is a goal of this is what's going on and how would this impact. So there's like the stakeholders involved aren't just the users, you also have to think of the business like as well. So like that's product design. My understanding of UI design, people that strictly do UI, is they deal with like with the aesthetics part of it. So most of them, if they have to work with companies, they have to work with like a UX researcher. So like someone else undo, or they work together with someone that has already figured out the functionality of this is how it would work. They've done the research, they've done like, so they just work together and then design the aesthetics of this is what it would look like. Yeah, I think that would be the major difference. So they don't excessively have to think about like the UX part of it that a product designer has to. So I would say that's the difference. Yeah, some people also identify as UX only, which frankly I'm not sure at this point what the difference is.
That's similar to product. That's more like product design, right? If you're
exactly
a UX designer.
Exactly. Okay. So I feel like products just kind of encompasses, you know, being a UX, being a UI. You also kind of like have to be the UX researcher as well, and you have to kind of like be an all-rounder for the company as well. So it's beyond designing. You have to think of how it would function, how it would look, and how like what the impact of it potentially would be for the you work for the company.
For the company. So more like the functionality part, not just the design. How functional what you're designing will be,
and the impact of it. So like I've worked on projects, where probably if you work on something like onboarding, it has to be like maybe there's an integration. You have a product, depending on whatever product you have. Yeah,
it said depending on the product you have, but I get
depending on the company, for example. So like, let's say if you're a designer in a company, like you're a product designer, you kind of have to like work with people like product managers to find out like, is this the best, what's the best way to solve a particular problem. So like the thing is, there will always be problem. There is always problem. People are dropped. There's churn. Like
there's
something
churn.
is. How do we optimize? Something already works fine. Okay, let's optimize it.
Let's make
so
it
like
better.
There's always. So there has to be like tons of research. Consider like all the users. Try to like maybe talk to them. Find the optimal point that won't cost the company a lot of money as well. Because if you have to like spend weeks and weeks working on something, like. It's just more of like there's so many factors involved, like opportunity cost. Should you rather work on this than this, or like how much technical like effort would this take us to implement? And when we finish it, does it add any value? So like there are those business goals and user goals that you have to kind of like merge and find the middle ground as a product designer.
Okay. Yeah. So for you, your journey and how you transition from like just design to product design, what would you say are some of the things that you had to pick up? Like, how was that learning experience like for you? You know, I know you mentioned that you had to take like a course, and you also had someone mentoring you, but every day, what were the things you had to commit to ensure that, you know, you got up to par with yourself as being a product designer?
Yeah, I think some of my friends probably have heard me say this at some point. I always say that I don't want to be a mediocre designer, and this is no shade to anyone, but because my beginning in design started very strong, so I was able to very fast, even before I started UX or like designing screens, when it was just simple design, I was able to understand like simple design, like UI design principles, like, you know, alignment, you know, like visual hierarchy, like those things that make a design clean, like those things that distinguish between what did you just do, or like things that just those attention to details. So I was very like strong on that from the early on, before I even like developed into finding my own path in design. So, and I know that being on social media, there's always an influx of people posting their designs. So even for me at that stage, I could tell things that were wrong in some things that people were posting. So like from my little knowledge, I could criticize people's designs, and knowing that, okay, I wouldn't, like, that looks wrong, like that doesn't look visually balanced, or like the alignment of this is off. So my strong knowledge of UI at the time helped me know that some people, I don't want to be like that. That's just, so I always say that and I'm a very confident person, I would say. So if I feel like most of the things I've been able to achieve in my life has come from me believing in myself. So, and I would look in the mirror and tell myself the code are truth. So I knew, like, from the beginning when I said I wanted to be a designer, that I needed to know what it takes to identify as a designer. I don't just want to be out there saying, I'm a designer if I don't know what it requires of me. So even when I had to like take a course, I wanted to ensure that I know what I have to do like on the daily. Okay, like let me break it down. So I was still working like a day job when I was learning the courses. So it means that if you've lived in Lagos, you know that when you go to work, you have to stay stuck in traffic. And then so like the times I actually did spend studying that course was maybe in the night after my day job is done, or like early in the morning before my work starts. So like I kind of had to like juggle all of that with what I was doing at the time to learning. So when I was leaving the country and I wanted to actively pursue it, I wanted to finish the course. And because I knew, like, if I am going to approach companies or like, if I'm going to get hired, there are expectations that those people have of me, and I didn't think I was there yet. So like what I even decided to do in the early days is to find an internship. I know that I'm a strong designer. I am very confident in my abilities, but I don't think that it was right of me to stand in front of companies and get hired full time. If I know that to get hired as a designer is not just designing on Figma. There has to be something else. So I wanted to understand what that expectation is before I start to identify that, okay, now come and hire me, you know. So
Yeah.
so I sought out internship, and that kind of gave me an insight into what the day-to-day is like for a designer. But that was what I wanted out of that internship. So I wasn't really paid great, or it wasn't like the best of experience, but I knew what I wanted going into it. So I feel like every move I've ever had to make has been pretty strategic. I knew what I wanted out of something, and then I went after it. So after then, I was confident to be able to say, okay, now I'm ready for the market and get hired full time. I have what it takes. So yeah, those are like decisions I've had to make, like sacrifices I've had to make in terms of like working for a job that isn't really paying me well, but I knew what I wanted out of it. Or even like starting again from scratch, because excuse me, at the time I'd worked like 3 years in community management, like combined. So being able to put that aside and say, in a new country still,
Let me pursue a new industry.
Yeah, so like those are things I had to do. And also it was very tough trying to live in Lagos, work in Lagos and still study something and all of that. So yeah.
It's an extreme sport.
It was, to be fair, like it was a struggle, but it was fun because I enjoyed what I was doing. It was one of those things that actually reinstated in my mind that I think I really enjoy designing. So, which is the point, changing career. I wanted something that I would
enjoy what you do. Exactly. While you were talking, you mentioned that to get hired as a designer is a lot more than Figma. I work with on my what I do on the side. I'm a tech coach, so I see lots of people that say, "Oh, I want to be a UI designer. I want to be a product designer," and for them, it's all about Figma. But what would you say are some of the things that are the traits of good designers outside of Figma? What are the things that companies actually look out for? Because like you said, the field of product design and even UI design is extremely competitive. There are so many people that can use Figma, but how does one distinguish themselves outside of the whole pool to ensure that you're not just a Figma designer, you're not just mediocre? What are the things that companies look out for?
Yeah, so I would say in this case, Figma is just a tool at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't define who you are as a designer. It's good to be proficient in Figma. It's good to be proficient in any of the design tools. But in my day-to-day as a designer, I feel like designing at all is like the last stage of your work. So when there's something that has to be done, there's like the part where you have meetings, like trying to understand what needs to be done. You probably have to do like user research with your product manager or like the product owners. You kind of like probably even start from scratch and try to do like user flows. I'm always with my notebook, so most of my problem solving start from sketching. So like you have to have all your stuff figured out before you even jump into Figma and design anything. Otherwise you'll be doing rubbish. At least that's what I think. So the problem solving part of like being a designer, the like design scoping part of being a designer doesn't really happen in Figma a lot of times. So before you even get to like, let's say something is 100%, you start from like, there's a problem, okay, it is 100%, you want to solve it. the part where you start to like gather insights, like speak to people, find out, like do your research, that's like 20%, 30%, and then you start having like a solution. The solution starts to like come together in your head. So if you're someone that does like wireframe, if you're someone that does like sketching, there's like all of that before you get to the grand picture of, okay, this is where I think my solution is looking at, and then like maybe go to Figma and start putting things down. So like your life doesn't start and end with Figma. There's like the other skills of what essentially design is problem solving. So like there's the other part of it, of finding a solution, like coming together with a solution and then visualizing your solution. That's where Figma comes in. So being a designer doesn't just start and end with it. And I think like people need to focus on those other parts. Of course, the UI is important. You have to be able to, follow the regular design principles. A clean design. Because even if you have a solution and you design it and it looks rubbish, then you're still not complete. So the design principles of a clean design, like everything looks good. Because it's possible for you to have a solution and you are not able to make it look visually appealing like it should. So like everything just has to be balanced in a way. So you have to like not just focus on Figma. It's just a tool at the end of the day. What happens when another tool comes up tomorrow and you have to learn again? It shouldn't reduce anything from how you're able to solve a problem. Because at the end of the day, you're using Figma to visualize solutions. So yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said about designing is problem solving. So Figma is like the last thing that you pick up when you've already problem solved and you have the solution. So Figma at the end of the day is just a tool. All right, yeah, that makes sense. Now you work as a product designer at Revolut. I know that I saw your tweets sometime in August and kind of blew up when you made the announcement. Yeah, it blew up. So I want us to talk about, first off, congratulations on your role. I'm sure it must have been very rigorous getting it. So I would like us to talk about what was the whole process like in terms of interviewing, just a little bit, like how many stages were there for anyone curious as to what the interview process like is for product designers. What was it like? How many stages did you have to go through?
I think there's about 5 or 6 stages. Frankly, I didn't keep count. It was, my process started in March. I got the job in May, but I didn't resume until last month. So I am not sure what the process is like if you apply through the website, because I was reached out to by someone from Revolut. Like I had a recruiter coming and ask if I was interested in the job. So the initial call is typically with a recruiter. So like there's a huge team of recruiters at Revolut that work at Revolut, and Revolut did something fascinating that I'd actually never seen before. I feel like I know recruiters want to get you you work with, like, recruiters try to, I don't know how to explain it. It was just new to see a recruiter working for you and not against you. In a way, recruiters are like the HR of the part of job seeking. So if people use like external recruiters, you know that they are probably just trying to like find you the fit with that company that is trying to hire, and they probably get paid when you get hired. Like the whole dynamic of it. But it was refreshing to see that the first call you have, that's going to be like the recruiter assigned to you for the rest of your interview journey. So it's like your buddy, your friend in a way. And I say friend because this person is working for you to get hired. So every interview that you're supposed to have, the person is willing to have like a preparation call with you for that interview to tell you what you need to prepare. This is how to put your best foot forward. So it was very, very weird and refreshing. Are you
sure you're for me? Is this
normal? Yeah. So the first call is with that recruiter that has been assigned to you. So you kind of like have to like book it. There's a process of you booking the time. So they attach you a recruiter. So that recruiter just tries to ensure like your experience and whatever aligns with the role. So for me that got hired all the way, I don't know what it's like for people that got dropped, what the deciding factor was. But like the first encounter after the recruiter reach out, like edge recruiter or whatever reaches out, is you get attached to someone. So that person takes you through the journey. So the first call is with that person, trying to get to know each other, and then they try to like get to know your experience, blah blah blah, and then they schedule you for like the next one, which I think was like portfolio review. So if you pass that stage, they schedule you for like a portfolio review where you kind of like go through your like 2 best projects, I think, and they try to like, there's a team of like designers, like people that interview you and try to see like the kind of project you work on, understand your skills in a way. So if you also like ace that, then I think the next one is like a take-home task. So they give you like a prompt that you have to work with. And there's something interesting that actually happened when I had my take-home task. I was sick, so I was supposed to deliver in like a week. That was the deadline. So I reached out and I said, I'm sorry, like this is a big deal for me, of course. I don't take this job for granted, but I'm currently very sick and I'm not able to deliver. I felt really bad because I was panicking, like I won't be able to deliver at this time. And I was very surprised, and when my recruiter reached out, I was like, oh, we are really sorry to hear that. Take your time. Hold up now. What do you mean take your time? So, and then it was like, yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
So I was like, what do you mean take my time? It was like, you don't even have to rush to send it back. Just focus on getting better yet, and then when you get better, all right, cool, I'll take it. So because I thought that would have meant, because I was panicking that night when I sent the email talking about how I don't take this for granted. Could I be given like a few days? And they're like, no, just try to get better first, and then send it in when you can. So I eventually sent it in, and I made like a presentation. I did like prototype and the rest of it. And when I sent it back, he gave me feedback saying, oh, I think you should add more context. So like, that was weird. So it's like, before he sends it to the design team that would review this, he thinks that I should add a little bit more context. And I had context to add. I made a whole presentation and everything. So I just I wasn't sure the extent of how much context I should add. So he let me understand that it would be nice for me to add much more than I currently did. So I added like more annotation and everything. And he even sent email back. I'm like, you don't have to worry about it now. There's public holiday in the UK. I'm like, what? So but the email came at the time when I had already even finished updating, because it wasn't too much task for me. I did the research, I did the design, so I had the context to add. It wasn't going to be a lot of like issue when I'd already done the presentation. I just needed to add more like context. So I did it. It was like an hour, and then I sent it back. But it came at the time when he said, you don't have to rush to send that back, by the way. We have public holiday here next week, so you can take the rest of it. I'm like, what? So that happened, and then I told them that I had updated it. I was like, yeah, that looks good now. So every step of the way, when there's something, there's like the recruiter trying to tell me, if you want more, like if you need 10 minutes for us to talk about it, let me know. So I'm like, why are you preparing me? It's like someone getting the secret to an exam before an exam. Exactly, so like there's that. So to know that they're actually working for you, they want you to get hired, was very strange for me. But yeah, after the home task, me too. So after the home task, there's the whiteboard challenge, which was something I was very worried about. You typically just join a meeting and they give you a prompt and you have to like run with it live. So they want to see your problem solving skills live and direct. You don't know what they are going to tell you. You don't know what prompts you are going to get. You don't know what problem they are going to ask you to solve. They just throw you a bone.
You and one interviewer, or is it like a group?
Case.
Okay, one or two.
No,
okay.
But for me it was one, but sometimes it's two. So you have to, yeah. And it was something that I panicked a little. Like I did like a lot of research online to know what the interview process, like the interview stages are. But most of the reviews I read, nobody went past the whiteboard. So I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it's like, even if you pass. So but I did some preparation. I created like a Figma file. I tried to like structure my file in terms of like, if I get the prompt, I did like a cardboard where I would add the prompt. I added like components for wireframes, like built just nothing that is like, oh, I already designed something, but like my frames that I would need to use. So like I made a component of it, like arrows that I would use for the user flow. So I had all of that in my file. I sectioned everything so that, because if I'm not organized that way, and for someone like me where when I hear something, I write it down. I start everything from my notebook. It was hard for me knowing that I will be judged based on something that is on the computer. So I can't like write when something comes in my head and I write it down. I can't do that. So I decide everything, and then typing fast, and then someone is just. But again, for the whiteboard, they work for you as well. You can ask why, like ask more context on the. They want to see how you take a problem and run with it. So it's even in your best interest to ask questions. Because if you're a designer, you don't just get a problem and start drawing. You have to understand who are the users, how does this work, blah blah blah. So those are the things that they test for. And if you manage to ace that, I think that's like the end of trying to test your knowledge of everything. So now you have like a meeting with the head of products like globally, and they try to like tell you what the expectations are, like this is how we work, design at Revolut, blah blah blah. And then the last part is typically the team fit. And this is also fascinating because Revolut is a large company. We have like 12,000 staff. So there are so many teams, there are so many people in need of design. Like every week people are getting hired. So they try to find the best team that works for you based on your experience. So like you will do about 2 or 3 team fits, which is like the team that are hiring designers. So you get to interview each other. So they ask about your experience, you ask about what they do, and then they try to see if you guys fit. Do you like each other? So then when they find like the best one for you based on your experience, so they try to like ensure that you hit the ground running and you work with like a team that kind of aligns with you or like your goals and stuff. So so technically you are past the stage of being tested, but at the same time you also have to like impress each other in a way. And then when they find you like a perfect team, then they make you an offer. So it's typically, so I would count the team fit as just one interview, even though you might have like 2 team fit calls, 3 team fit calls, depending on how many you have to have till they find you. But like there's a team fit section, so like 5 stages technically, but it typically runs very fast, like less than 2 months. Like you get feedback immediately.
Yeah, 5
schedule the next one.
Is really reasonable for like 2 months. It's reasonable. That means they respond fast as well.
Yeah, literally I've had interviews in the morning and heard back from my recruiter in the evening, like for you moved to the next round. I don't know what it's like for people that did not, but it was very like very fast for me.
That was your experience. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So it was fascinating. It was interesting to see like, okay, this is new, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it. I would like that kind of experience. I always like that kind of experience. Just having someone that is your buddy, that guides you and tells you, okay, this is what they want to see, just do it this way.
It was interesting. It was weird for me. I kept saying it. Like when I eventually saw my recruiter, I was privileged there was an event here in Dubai, so they flew in. I was like, yo, like it felt like we'd known each other forever. Literally, like it was that kind of relationship.
Oh, awesome. So outside of Figma, what other tools do product designers use, or at least what other tools can product designers use outside of Figma? I know Figma is like the most popular.
If you work in a company, it is kind of determined by the company you work for. Okay. So you typically don't get to choose, but Figma is the most popular, like you said, because there's like Adobe XD, that's also kind of like Figma, but it's like an Adobe suite. But again, whatever tool you use, if you're not a freelancer, so your tools are pretty much determined by the company you work for. But for designing, I would say Figma. But if you're someone that does like illustration so you probably will use Adobe Illustrator too. If you're someone that does like 3D, so like it depends on what you need to do essentially. But again, these are tools that will be paid for by your company. But outside of design, I think everybody needs to be able to like manage their time, manage their tasks. So like Google Calendar will probably be your best buddy in terms of like blocking focus time. If you work in companies where there's so many meetings, or you just want to be able to like focus and get work done, or like not miss meetings, so like Google Calendar probably. There are also like tools like Jira or like Coda or like Notion, depending again on what your company use or what you personally prefer to like jot your things. And as a designer, I think it's very important to be meticulous about documenting. So you could probably have your own like private like Notion or like Google Doc where you always document the things you do, because it'll be good for your performance review and also like when you're working on your portfolio, or just talking generally in terms of like things you've been able to do in your life, document it.
Yeah, document it, because I know that I was going through your Medium blog, and there was one you documented about, I think that was wrapping up 2021 to
Yes.
2022, and at the
Yeah.
end I saw something like, I'm just paraphrasing it, these are not your exact words, but something like, I'll keep pushing till I find the right opportunity, till I find the right
Yeah.
job, like,
Yeah.
you're not going to settle for less, that kind of thing. And
Yep.
and when I saw it, I was like, yeah, like, imagine, like, you didn't know this then, but you were definitely pushing yourself. And it was so
Yeah.
interesting to know that you said this to yourself, and like 2 years later or 2.5 years later, you're working at a really huge company. So it's inspiring to see how much you've evolved and accomplished
I
within this short
yeah.
time frame.
Yeah. At
Yeah.
that time in my life, really, I just ended my internship, and like I said, it wasn't one of the greatest experience of my life, especially for me coming from Carry-wise, where it's just perfect work-life balance. Carry-wise pampered us. I would just say, like, I was a very pampered little girl, and so being thrown into places where it actually was something that gave me the clarity that I don't ever want to work in an agency in my life as a designer. It just wasn't for me. I was thrown into the internship was at an agency, and it was just different from what I was used to. But it was something that gave me the wake up call to go back to the drawing board. But again, like I said, what I wanted out of that experience was knowing what the day to day is like, and that's all I took from it. So like every other thing is just by the way. But once I was able to take that, I went back to the drawing board. I spent like the next 2 months working on my portfolio. Like I can now identify as a designer, like I said, so I knew what I wanted. And for someone that has like experience working in one of the best fintechs in Nigeria, I thought I need to be able to leverage that and actually focus on fintech. I've worked there for 3 years. I'm very familiar with fintech, and I want to not work at an agency, so I think I would be a good fit
That was like your
using all of those
niche.
experience exactly in fintech. So I went, I understood what I needed to do, and I built a strategy. Went back home, spent like the next 2 months working on my portfolio. I was so stressed. I had like pimples on my face like this. But yeah, I knew what needed to be done. So I built my portfolio, and there was a company. I started to look into fintechs in Dubai. And my first job at Mamo, I remember very vividly that when I was making research into fintechs, I found the company, and it just spoke to me, because I also found out here that people just do functional. Like, does it work? Yeah, okay, that's all that matters. So like, I didn't want to be that. I wanted to work in a place where design is at the forefront, which is like where I was coming from. Carrywise is very meticulous about design. I don't want to be a designer that doesn't really care about, does it work, and that's no. So I kept looking, and then I found this company. In the work, what I read about the company was so nice. I liked the website, and I was like, I want to work here. I remember bookmarking it and telling my friends, I want to work here. I found one nice company. I will apply there once I finish my portfolio. so I followed, I think, the co-founder that has like a design background on LinkedIn. And when I finished my portfolio, I remember that same evening I went back to the company. And fortunately for me, they were hiring, so I applied. But I didn't stop there. I went back to LinkedIn and messaged the co-founder that I liked, that works in design, and I sent him a message, and he responded. He asked if I had applied, and I said yes, I have. And he's like, oh, they are going to tell the HR and blah blah blah. And the next morning, I started my interview. So I think one of the things I've been privileged to be able to do for myself is get my feet in the door. Because at that point I was just one of many that applied, but I reached out, I cold emailed, so, and they liked what they heard or what they read, and they were able to put my stuff in front of the HR, and I started my interview, and I got hired after like 6 interviews. So, and at that point, I think they even said they were about to round up the interviews. I was one of the least experienced, but I got the job. So, hooray! Yeah.
That's so good. Like, you've always been proactive and want to take the action, like very strategic
Yeah.
about your moves. That's really
Honestly,
good.
yeah.
So I have
So,
like 2 questions before we
okay,
wrap up. We're gradually
okay.
getting to the end. So the first one is, I know you've spoken about portfolio. I know portfolio is very important for anyone at all, particularly if you're in product design. So are there any pieces of projects or things that should be in your portfolio for you, getting hired at Revolut, even your job at Mamu? You mentioned you were working on your portfolio. What were some of the strategic portfolio pieces that you added, or one that is looking to get hired in product design needs to have in order for, you to stand out to a potential employer?
So for this, I think there are two ways to it. I would say the first portfolio I ever built, actually I've built 3 portfolios in my life, I guess. The first one was the one I used to get my internship before I finished my course, and that was very, very bossy because I did a presentation. I only had things of like the design, social media designs I did at Carrywise, and the wireframes of the things I was learning in my course. That's why I put together in the presentation. I did like slides, made it a PDF, and I reached out. That's how I got my internship. I reached out to people like, hire me. This is why you should hire me.
Straight up, yeah.
So that was like the first portfolio I ever did. So like at the time, I didn't have any project I had done in my name. I didn't have any experience in design. I just had my course and the things I did at Carrywise, and I did like it was very beautiful. I think I even had a friend that I asked for it and used it as a template for himself. I think at that point I didn't really have impactful things. It was just a collection of the things I had done. But I feel like at that stage, because it was just an internship, it worked. But my second portfolio that got me a job at Mamo was more of me recognizing the fact that I'm just starting professionally. I don't think this Excel, like this slide, the presentation would work now. So I had done some things at the agency, but unfortunately for me, they were all like NDA stuff because they were like Microsoft's good partner. Don't let's even go into that. I couldn't publicly like use those things.
Put it out as your work.
And because it was also an agency, it was more of like a client want this, you do this, and that's not what I want. So I focused on working like hand to hand on the project. Like I worked on a hypothetical problem. It wasn't a hypothetical. It was actually a problem that existed in Nigeria, but like I made it my personal problem to find solution for it. So I did end to hand. I did the user research. I went as far as like choosing colors, accessibility, testing that this works, validating the problem. So like I did the whole drama from beginning to the end. So that was like the major project I had in my portfolio. But like I wanted to be able to communicate, even though I don't have experience professionally as like a lot of experience as a designer. I want you to be able to see what I can do through this project. So like I did that, and then I used it to build like a motion portfolio at the time, and then I connected it to like some website that turns it to a website for you. But yeah, so the content of it, honestly at that time I was just focused on showing my skills through that project. And then I added like the NDA stuff, but like I padlocked it so that I would only give you the password to see it. So that was what got me the job at Mamo. But again, getting your feet in the door is one thing. Being able to also like defend that you can do the job, because they did like 6 interviews. They also gave me a take-home task. I still did like portfolio review. Yeah, I did 6 interviews. I did engineering interview, product management interview.
Engineering interview, really?
Yeah, engineering interview,
you
product
work
management.
With engineers,
yeah. I did engineering, I did product management, I did design, like 3 design interviews. They gave me test, like I did test, I presented the test. So like I still have to like I still have to defend my, but yeah, like that was what was in my first, that was what got my first job. But then I did a year at Mamu, and I was able to work on a lot of impactful projects. So at that time, my focus wasn't on user interview, show that I did color scheme or the rest of it. I was focused on the impact of the things I had done. So like the portfolio that got me my job after Mamu and my job at Revolut is the one I worked on that was very impactful. So I focused more on like the problem that we are trying to solve as a business and the impact of what it did. So like I had projects that led to like something percent growth in GMV. Like I was able to quote numbers and so yeah, my resume is number part, or like the impact of how I led this project and it led to this. Yeah, so I'm very, very particular about that. So I've taken the portfolio down now, but yeah, that's what I used to get my last 2 jobs. Yeah.
That's good. Your portfolio evolved as you also evolved and
Exactly.
got more
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, final question. Looking back, what do you wish you had known when you first started your journey in design, or what's one piece of advice you give to anyone starting their product design journey?
I'll go for the advice. I think the most important thing is to be honest with yourself. There is no, well, as someone, even though I can say that I'm very confident, I am always ready to back that confidence with my skills. If I know that I don't know something, I will not. I cannot put myself on a pedestal that. I mean, while it's nice for you to get out of your comfort zone, but I'm talking of like, if you feel like you don't know this thing, don't deceive yourself. Go and learn it. You get what I'm trying to say. So my advice would be for you to be very honest with yourself. There's a lot of like pandering on social media. There's a lot of trying to be like social media designer, when in actual fact, like when it comes to actually doing the work, you probably can't, or like you probably. So I feel like designers, new designers should focus on actually having that skills. Like let your skills should be at the point where you, when you are weak, like they tap you like this and say, oh yeah, you know what you are doing.
Ready.
So I feel like no one should skip that part of actually getting like the skills, like learning. Be ensure that you're always like curious, always like ready to learn, always like look for ways that you can improve, and be very honest with yourself, because after you leave that outside where everybody's saying yes, stand in front of the mirror and be like, are you sure?
True?
So so yeah, there's that. Because when I was learning, I would not skip any part of my course, because if I don't get it, like this is very important. So if it's part of my outline and I feel like I don't understand it, as opposed to skipping it, I will stay stuck. Which I'm not saying is good for everybody to be stuck, but I know that this is important for me to know. If I skip it, then I don't know it. And what if I need it? So yeah, like no one should cheat the part of learning, at least the basics that you can now develop on. It's every day you learn, like nobody knows it all. So I feel like no one, if you're starting fresh, should miss out or like cheat on the part where you actually know what you're doing and you know the basics of it, because that's what's going to be like your building block to being a better designer overall. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so good and so true. I love the advice. Thank you so much, Oye. It has been a pleasure meeting you and hearing your story and just seeing how you evolved and took those decisions. I think it's very important for anyone just starting their journey to take their career into their own hands, as opposed to you sitting and trying to think someone's going to work for you. Like, not everyone is as nice as your recruiter.
Oh Lord, yeah. But yeah.
So you have to literally go out there, make those tough decisions, and be strategic about every step that you take. And I'm very excited to see what's in store for you, and I'm wishing you all the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for listening to my ramblings, because I know I have the ability to ramble sometimes, but thank you so much for inviting me.
It was
I'm
fun.
so honored.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you everyone for watching and sticking to the end of this episode, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.